We're going to start this video off with an example to provide a little bit of a framework for what the intention of this video is, describing circumstances, their varying forms, and how they can have an effect on the process of rewiring the mind, working with and changing the deeper belief structures that run our entire life. The example is, let's take two hypothetical people. We can call them Mark and Matt because those are the first two names that came to my mind, right? So let's say Mark works in some corporate environment. He's got the office life, he's got, wife and kids, he's got to take them to practice, he's got to go to school, he's got this business thing going on. It's just, there's all these moving pieces. The dynamic at work is okay, but there's definitely a lot of like gossip stuff going on in the work and a bunch of drama and things like that, which doesn't mean that he has to be a part of it, but it is in the workspace, right? And then you have Mike, I believe it was Mark and Mike. Then you have, if not, it's Mike now. You have Mark and Mike, right? So now you have Mike, who, let's say Mike is just, maybe he's like, he works a jet ski rental somewhere on the beach or something, and he rents some room for $500 a month, and he doesn't really have any quote unquote responsibilities, okay? Let's say both of these individuals are in a similar space of mind. They obviously have two totally different lives. The reasons why they are, we can say, yeah, it's all related to the same core story in terms of what the individual went through when they were kids, but the actual story obviously is varying. But for this example, let's say they're in a similar space of mind, okay? So, and that they are going to apply the same principles. So each week, they're going to apply a new shift, and they're going to just stick with it and go along the road, right? And continue to add and work to change these habits. So if we look at these two situations, you may already be aware, which one of these two do you think is going to have more progress quicker? Which one is going to get more better, more soon, more quicker, right? Who's going to see the shifts more dramatically and sooner? It's going to be Mike, okay? Because he doesn't have a bunch of these external stressors and factors. Now, coming back to the Mark hypothetical individual, someone that's in a situation like that says, yeah, no, I know, I get it. I have all these things, but I still want to do this work. I still want to get the benefits of doing this work. You can still get the benefits of doing the work without necessarily changing any of these external stimuli or your association with them. It can be more challenging. It can still happen, but you're probably going to get a lot further down the road if you also look at the deeper belief mechanisms that are behind why you are in the situations that you're in. Obviously, one of the things I said was kids, right? Kids are a blessing, but the job dynamic, the relationship dynamic, the friend circles, there's all these different factors that, if we have historically been running off of the subconscious mind that was conditioned when we were in our adolescence, which is generally the case unless someone's done this work, then we can say that there's a great chance that the reason that we are doing the form of work we are doing and obtaining the things we have obtained is associated with some kind of keeping the self safe mechanism of thought. So there, and a lot of times it's working so hard to get to a certain point of quote unquote success. And the real reason behind that is because as a kid, the individual felt that they needed to garner a certain amount of success in order to feel or experience love. Conscious thought, Mark, back to Mark, I could say this to Mark and he'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? That's not true, But it's different conscious perspective versus what's really running the show under the current, So that's a good example to start off with to kind of paint the picture of just generally what I'm talking about here. And, obviously, a lot of people could take that and run with it, but I'll spend a little bit more time just diving in to examples. So taking away from the Mark and Mike thing, just generally speaking. So if someone's in a relationship, right? And in that relationship, whether married, spouse, beginning to date, dating, what is the state of emotion that person is generally in? What kind of stuff are they talking about around you? How do they react to the things that you say about your ideas? And again, if the unconscious body is like, yeah, man, I like this person is good, I want this relationship, there's an unconscious factor of not wanting to be alone, right? And so because of that, we will, a lot of us will make excuses. We will unconsciously point out, no, it's not like that. It's this, this is good for me, and I'm not saying pull the rug out if any of this feels like in your wheelhouse. There's other ways to go about it where you can, kind of like gradually shift the way you are showing up in the relationship and just kind of see what happens from there. But if someone hasn't looked at these deeper parts of themselves before, then there's a good chance that in doing this, it's going to change the relationship dynamics anyway, and I've mentioned this a lot before, but for me, in relationship, whether it's people or work or whatever, but my relationship to work, I used to think that chasing some kind of a glorified, corporate sales career with good benefits or whatever, and a good, pipeline would be what, gave me success in my sense of, whatever. And my sister pointed out to me a long time ago, I didn't believe her at the time, that I was just trying to prove something to my dad. Didn't think that was true, thought I was doing the reputable thing. Difference. Conscious thought versus what's the unconscious driver. And if you heard that before, long story short, I realized, holy shit, she was right, And so this also shows itself in friend group dynamics, and there's so many versions of that, right? Someone could be an individual who has, say they got 2 friends in their life, or 1 friend or 3 friends or whatever, and it's just this knit group. And you're with them however consistently, and you haven't really thought about it before, but if you were to pay attention, and really practice awareness over the course of the next week when you do hang out with them, you might notice, holy fuck, man, this guy's really negative all the time. Or holy fuck, man, this person judges people left and right. Or whatever it is, or they're always talking about politics. They'll never shut up about politics, right? And there's, there's deeper aspects to that, why I say that, but it's like what is the energy of the conversation? Or are they friends that are always lifting you up? They're always encouraging you to take new steps, to try new things. You have ideas and they encourage you about that sounds like a great idea, man, what do you think you're going to do about it? Is it that kind of a friend? Or what is the dynamic of what you do when you hang out with these friends? Another huge thing, and I obviously have talked about cannabis a lot. That's a big category to look at with this. If someone has, whether or not, but if you have cannabis in this picture, are you hanging out with your friends and vegging out and just playing video games until you can't think anymore and then you zonk out? Or are you going out with a group of friends to some local water, whether it's a ocean or a lake or something, going on a boat, or maybe you don't have a boat, maybe you're just going out on a nature trail and hanging out with some friends and having a little bit of Mother Mary, a little bit of conscious cannabis with you, and utilizing that time to think about and talk about things that lift you up, and I know that, a historical version of myself was super resistant to those kinds of ideas because my snapback, that's not how the world works. But when you break it down very simple, it is how the world works. We desire a healthy brain and a healthy central nervous system. And a big component of that is what we do with our thoughts and emotions, what we focus on. Are we feeding the good wolf or the bad wolf, So that's a couple different examples of circumstances. Obviously, there's also circumstances related to news that someone could get that is, really challenging news to navigate. Maybe a job goes away or something with a house. A lot of people recently have gone through a lot of turmoil in, above Georgia, I believe. And I haven't looked totally, but I've seen some of the footage. People have been through some stuff after this Hurricane Helene, and love and light to all those families. But, you could be someone who it's like, yesterday you had a house and now you don't fucking have a house. And yesterday your thought was, I'm going to start fucking working on rewiring my mind, right? And then now you're faced with this adversity, right? So it's going to be more challenging. Someone who has something extreme like that, it could be, fuck it, man, I'm just going to table this till later and I'm just going to navigate this the way I know how. And that's something that I did. A different scenario, but when my father transcended on, I was at a point where I was 22 days off of alcohol, And that was the longest stretch I'd gone off of alcohol since the beginning of COVID and my mom transcending on. And boom, this happens. And next thing you know, I'm in Georgia and we're drinking, so it's like, and I was like, fuck it, man, I'll get back to it. And I did. I got back to it. So it's like whatever works, whatever floats your boat, dealer's choice. But yeah, the point of this video was just to, one, finish up this 3-part series that I had the idea of. I don't know how many more 3-part series or things like that I'll do. Definitely gonna have more content coming out. But I think that one can draw, a general conclusion from what I've said so far, right? Like the things and the situations that you interact with, the dynamics that you interact with, work or relationships or situational circumstances, can definitely have a positive or a negative effect, but none of it can stop you from doing it. None of it can stop you from garnering, more autonomy over the way your mind works and how you feel every day. It doesn't take too long to do some research and see that this is possible for anyone. And Viktor Frankl is a great example of that, Man's Search for Meaning. And if you haven't heard of him or that book before, long story short, he was a psychologist who found himself in a Holocaust camp, and there are people dying next to this guy, and they're not taking the bodies away, and he's just sitting there. And most people being exposed to that kind of dynamic, that kind of situation, that kind of circumstance, it's going to have an effect. It's going to, make people go crazy or even take themselves out, that sort of thing. But not Viktor Frankl, and you could say, well, he was a psychologist before. Point is, it's possible. No matter what someone is going through, it's always possible to grow outside of that. And I'll finish this up with just a quick little note on a circumstance for me recently that a historical version of myself would definitely have handled differently. And it may not seem like it on this video, but I'm a little bit shorter of breath because a little over a week ago, about 9 days ago, I was riding my bike and I had a little bit of a spill. And I could go to how that happened, but we'll skip it. Basically, the bike was rolling, and my impact, I landed on my ribs on the bike. And so I ended up with some fractured ribs. First 5 to 7 minutes, I couldn't breathe. It's the first time that I can recall where I was not able to breathe. That was interesting. But once I kind of came to and everything, I started thinking about, what is this? How can I grow from this? What's going to come from this? What is this going to birth? And granted, that night when I got home and was in bed and getting up and out of bed, it was challenging, no doubt. But the version of self of me, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever, likely would have thrown the bike and been like, of course this would happen to me and blah, 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 and really go into this negative cycle. But I didn't do that, and I've looked at it as an opportunity to practice presence. And I feel like it's been very, very helpful in that regard. And I know that if nothing else, I'm going to be able to relate to even more people that have painful experiences happen to them, especially if someone cracks their ribs. But yeah, man, it shows the difference. Now, to tie into that thing I said before, a little bit back, if this happened to me right when I was about to think about diving into the work with my mind, it may have taken a sidebar if I hadn't done any of the work yet. But I fucking see a clear, significant difference between how I handled this and how I'm pretty sure I would have handled it 3 to 4 years ago. And I've also noted that I feel like I'm healing faster than what the doctor said. He said 4 to 6 weeks for full recovery, and 2 to 3 weeks of pretty challenging, not so fun, I guess, pain and whatnot. And it's been interesting, but I've been practicing presence with it, man. What you resist persists, and that's just that's the deal. When we resist shit, we flare it up, and so having those moments where I move a certain way and then all of a sudden that pain emerges, instead of instinctively fighting it, there's that little flinch. It's oh no, okay, I'm just going to be present with this. I'm just going to allow this feeling to be here. I'm not going to fight it, And that's the recipe, man. But, you know, applying these principles, the ongoing practice of metacognition, thinking about thinking and how we're processing, what we're feeling, tuning into these feelings that we've historically bottled. You know, when you first get going, it's a process. You gotta like build the muscle. But holy fuck, is it worth building? And I hope that if you made it to the end of this video, it was helpful for you. And if you have any questions at all, please comment below. I appreciate all the support and all the engagement. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.
Just you white in me again. Just you white. You'll be sorry that your tears